editor of enduro.media, and welcome to episode 1 of the Enduro Bureau podcast. I'm here with my co-hosts, Courtney and Jared. Courtney Schmalley, why don't you introduce yourself for everybody?
Well, thanks for hosting and having us on. I'm Courtney Schmalley. I'm born and raised Sylvan Lake area, and my spouse Jared and I run a sprint enduro race series, now introducing XCs, and it's called SOR Enduro Racing. So big into the racing myself, but just getting back into it this season as I've had a long journey of recovery, but here we are.
I'm just going to ask a question that everyone else who's listening, because hopefully people are listening from far and wide, or at least our listener is remote, our single listener. Where is Sylvan Lake?
Sylvan Lake on the grid is about an hour and a half north of Calgary. So basically directly in the middle of Edmonton and Calgary.
Alberta, Canada.
Alberta, Canada.
All right. So cool. Thank you. And Jared, introduce yourself to the listener.
Yeah, my name's Jared Stock. I've been racing my whole life. Born and raised in Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. Been in Calgary for the last few years and then back in Medicine Hat. Courtney and I run SOR Enduro, which is a race series here in Alberta. We've started focusing on the sprints, bringing the sprint stuff into Canada and Alberta, and now just trying to build that series. Myself, I've been racing off-road and enduro for the last probably 10 years now. I was pro motocross before that, but now I'm racing my six days, and that's kind of the main focus for us now, was building that series and racing as much as possible.
Right on. Well, thank you guys for hopping into the Enduro Bureau world and co-hosting this ship.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
That's right, you are. So, hey, I want to introduce our guest, who hopefully is excited to be here. 50-50.
Always.
All right. So our guest is, I'm just going to say I'm pretty excited to have her on. She is the defending 2023 AMA Endurocross Pro Women's Champion. She's a member of the Team USA ISDE Women's World Trophy that just happened to win in Argentina last October. She also happened to win a couple of tests there, including, and we'll talk about this, with a busted up, separated shoulder. So, and also she is a contributing writer here at enduro.media. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Rachel Gutish. Yay!
Welcome!
Rachel, welcome to the Enduro Bureau podcast. You're our first guest.
I'm so honored. I knew I was going to be on a podcast. I didn't realize I was going to be the first guest. So now I really got to sell this thing. I got to be the best guest imaginable, because if I'm the
Pressure's
start,
on.
that's I know.
Yeah,
Getting race day jitters here.
Yeah, don't screw it up. Otherwise, we're all out of work.
Oh, and I just started with you guys. That'd be such a bummer.
Hey, so welcome. Let's just start with some easy ones. Like, where are you right now?
So right now I am in Irwinton, Georgia. So I'm from Indiana. I actually am the only non-Canadian on this podcast right now, aren't I?
You are.
Do I need to throw in like a gratuitous A just to
always? Maybe
when in
more
Rome,
comfortable with it,
and the occasional sorry would be well appreciated, if you don't mind. Sorry.
Okay, I have a hard time with that. So we say it like sorry, like it's got an A in it. So it's like sorry. Is sorry correct? Is that close?
Sorry, perfect. I was late getting out of the house.
We'll take it.
Yeah,
excellent.
It's all good.
So anyway.
Yeah, you're from Indiana, and one of the things when we met at the Endurocross series last year is you were impressed that I knew how to say your hometown.
Yes, I was very surprised by that. It's the French fur trappers got there first, so Terre Haute is how you say it, but I've very rarely heard anyone not from there get it right. So was very impressed by that.
I was going to write it down for Jared and Courtney and make them try to say it and see if they could get it. Could have been a little halftime
Well,
game.
wait. Oh, you guys are on
So
the Alberta side though. You don't have like the
Yeah.
French Canadian background. If you're French Canadian, I bet you'd get it.
Well, I am from the East, so, and I did used to, when I was a kid, I did a little bit of French immersion school, but I've lost most of that now. So,
You're closer. We're very far from anything French. The odd sign we see is French, but that's about it.
St. Albert, Alberta is a thriving French community.
Oh, that's true.
yeah.
We had the option to take French in school, but you don't give kids that age the option to do any extra work because
They
we
don't
don't
do it.
take it. No.
All right. Well, hey. So again, once again, welcome, Rachel. Really glad you're here. And I just wanted to start off like new year, new team. Why don't we go there first? So last season you were riding for Over and Out Racing, Gas, and things have changed.
Yeah, so Over and Out's definitely still involved. Happy to still be with them. They do women's off-road riding campouts, and their whole reason for being is to try and get more women racing and riding, which is, something I'm obviously
Rad.
100% behind. I just didn't really have the option with my new team to make them a title sponsor. So still involved, still working with them, just not quite to the same level of support we had. Now, as far as the moving to Sherco, going to give the very, very brief story on that because, as you know, if I gave the full story, that would take the entire podcast, and no one wants to hear me rant for a full hour about things. So, short version of the story is I was originally slated to ride for Gas. I got really disrespected in a like my feelings were hurt, and it takes a lot to hurt my feelings. So I wasn't really considering looking elsewhere, but then when all that happened, I'm like, well, if they don't appreciate me, maybe I should, go find someone who does. And I got lucky enough to find someone who did, and the deal ended up working out way better than anything Gas ever offered me. So it really just ended up being a win-win all the way around.
Yeah.
It
So
was a little stressful though. Like I took the deal without ever having ridden or tested the bikes to speak of. Like I rode a friend's around a parking lot once for 10 minutes, and that was all the time I'd ever spent on the blue bike. So a bit of a leap of faith, but sometimes you got to take that leap.
yeah. So I know from talking before, it was kind of interesting the way that it ended up working out with Sherco. So they had approached you, I think during the Endurocross season, and as I recall, you were basically short story. You were unable to do it because you had a potential commitment with Gas. It didn't work out, and then timing worked out. Like you were lucky enough that you were able to resurrect that potential deal.
Yes, very, very lucky. I can't really even describe how lucky I was to get a deal in late December. Like that's normally not, I don't know necessarily how the sponsorship and contract seasons work in Canada, but I imagine it's like down here. Everybody's pretty well locked into what they're doing by early November at the absolute latest. So the fact they had anything for me at all, and a deal as good as they did, I was super, super grateful.
Yeah, and you mentioned like by November things are set up. This was all going down early December.
Yes, I will say this is probably the most stressful off season I've ever had. Just in terms of, am I going to have a ride? Who's it going to be with? And then with the original Gas deal, all my product sponsorships were going to be covered through that. So I hadn't reached out to any of my personal sponsors except to let them know, hey, I'm doing this deal. And then if it was a sponsor of the team I was supposed to ride for, I was letting them know, hey, I'll be staying with you guys, but I'll be through, the team. And then for the people who were conflicts, like sponsors I couldn't carry over, I did the polite thing, let them know, hey guys, it's been a pleasure working with you. Unfortunately, I'm going to this team. I can't carry over our sponsorship. So I'd already either told people they didn't need to worry about holding a budget for me because either it's coming through the team's budget or I'm not going to be able to use you. So then not only am I trying to put together what brand I'm going to be on, I'm trying to do all my product sponsorships without knowing what brand I'm going to be on anymore. It's like, hey guys, I might be writing something, and I know I told you I didn't need any help, but maybe I need some help after all. Can you still manage that? So the good news is a lot of my sponsors I've been with for many, many years, and they were happy to help me as best they could for the situation. So we're in a good place. It just took a lot of work to get to that good place.
Right on. So the last time we talked about it, you'd only had a couple rides on the Sherco, and so now we're about a month and a half later. and you've actually started your season. You've had 2 rounds of the U.S. Sprint Enduro Series already. So, you want to talk a little bit about the experience riding the new Sherco?
Yeah, of course. But before we get around to that, I'm kind of curious because I'm talking to two co-hosts who run a sprint enduro series in Canada, and I'd kind of like to do a little compare contrast. I'd love to hear what your guys' sprint format looks like versus ours.
Come on up.
Yeah, you'd have to come and try it out. I think you'd be great. We need some more women out here competing, so we'll give you a place to stay and all. And I know a lot of Sherco riders out there that can get you a bike set up.
Sweet, sweet. I'll have to
Actually,
You
check
know,
the calendar and see
and
if I can
it,
make it happen.
and I'm pretty
it all
sure they have
depends.
start money for you.
If
So
if you're faster on your Sherco, you can't come
Wait, why is that?
because the you just for the listeners, a background story. Rachel and I were on the same minute at the Corduroy Enduro this year, and I was struggling a little bit at the beginning, and then I was like, I'm gonna blast these tests, and I started turning it up, and I was like, yeah, I just smoked everyone, and turn around and come off the test, and Rachel's followed me out of the test a couple of times, and I was like, oh, okay, I see it, see how it is. So if you're faster on the Sherco, you're an official threat to my overall. So
Oh, I don't know about that. I was close to you maybe once. You're pretty quick.
with a failing clutch slave, you still were on my ass
Oh,
everywhere. So just
okay,
kidding.
yeah. That's a whole other story, isn't it?
Yeah, I
so
feel
why don't
bad.
we?
I feel bad. Like I couldn't help you out in the woods, but
Meh.
it's okay.
I survived. I made it to the end of the race, and I still somehow finished second at the
Yeah,
Cord, so I'll take it.
but
Awesome.
yeah, back to that the sprint series stuff we wanted here. We actually got a taste of it when we came down. We were actually we drove from Medicine Hat to Montreal to race one of our teammates, Phil's. Phil.
Yeah.
He had a winter sprint enduro, and we were going to race it in I think it was like March or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Is there
it
still
ended up,
snow?
yeah, we're blasted with snow right now.
Yeah.
And
In
and just
so
for
you
context, again,
yeah.
sorry about that. Just for context, when you say you're driving from Medicine Hat to Montreal, that's how long a drive?
45 hours.
It was a very long drive.
So we blasted out there in 45 hours, and then Phil's race ended up getting canceled. And so the closest race that we had to go to was our other teammate Tyler was down in North Carolina, South Carolina for the
North Carolina.
for the full gas sprint enduro. So we're like, okay, so it's 18 hours. Let's add it on. So we trucked down to the States another 18 hours, and we somehow justified it because it was 45 hours back home from Montreal and only 38 hours back home from North Carolina, plus the 18 hours. So somehow we justified that we'd get home quicker.
It made the
So we
most sense.
Enduro math.
enduro
I
math,
love
yeah.
that.
And so yeah, we got our first taste of like, we had raced, or I'd raced 6 days, probably 5 times or 4 times before that. So we got a taste of like special testing, but we wanted to always check out a sprint enduro. So we pinned it down there and got a taste of that. I crashed out on like the third test, but Courtney had a great day racing, and we loved it so much that that year we did a couple of practice, see what the people would participate. And then the following year after that, we went for a full 7-round sprint enduro, and it's loosely based off, the very similar type, one cross test, one enduro test, about the 5 kilometers or 3 miles, similar to what the format that you guys have down there. So we benchmarked. It's not stealing; it's benchmarking.
I like it. Yeah, so it is. It is a very similar format to what you're racing down there, Rachel. Rachel in the sprint in the U.S. Sprint Enduro Series, and who knows, maybe at some point in the future, you could somehow build a North American sprint or North American Enduro Series instead of having two separate ones in Canada and the U.S. Let's
That's
keep the
pretty
dream
cool.
alive. So
Keep it
yeah.
alive.
Okay, Rachel. So the 2024 season, you're 2 rounds in. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how those went, your impressions of getting on the bike? So again, last time we talked early January, you were still just testing and trying to get a setup in place.
Yes. And to be fair, I'm still doing a lot of testing and getting a setup in place. The Sherco is a fantastic platform, but it is very different than the gases were. So there's been a lot of not even just adjusting the bike itself, but me adjusting to the bike. Like the way, so for example, it corners so fast. I love the cornering, but there's been times where I instinctively set up the corner like I'm on my gas and it's going to take me like a second longer to corner. And then I find that I'm in the bushes and the corner's like still like a good 5 feet in front of me. So there's been a lot of that aspect of like, or like on the gas, I had a track shock for a very long time. So I got used to the feeling of that back end being very dead and staying on the ground. I can go just as fast on the Sherco, but I need to remember that the back end coming up is not a terrifying sign I'm going to die. That's just how the bike handles.
Right.
So it's been a lot of that sort of thing. Just the, again, learning the new platform, learning the new chassis. And I mean, I've been on it a month now, a little longer than a month, which sounds like a long time. But when you've ridden one kind of bike for many, many years and most of your career, and you're transitioning to a completely different platform, it does take some time just to get used to. But with that being said, from what I've seen so far, this is absolutely a bike I can be competitive and win on. So,
Well, I think
Wait,
you're
again,
proving
given that I went into it, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like you're obviously proving the competitive part. I mean, you've put this thing on the podium. Your first 2 races out.
Yes, that is a very good point you make, and I think sometimes I expect a lot out of myself. So I do need to remember that, yeah, podium finish is definitely a solid start. And I mean, I did have a couple test wins last round. I won 2 of the 6 enduro tests, so I was pretty stoked with that.
sweet.
Cross test, I was, to be honest, Brandy Richards is the fastest woman in the world, and she was blowing my doors off on the moto track. In fact, Jared, I think if I come to Canada, like, can I get some private how to ride a moto track and not suck at it lessons? Because
Deal.
of all the things I do, that's definitely my weak point, I guess I'd say.
We specialize in gross, dusty, flat, hard pack. So,
Perfect. That's exactly what I need.
all right,
It's
we'll
the
talk to the
So I
Alberta
imagine.
Sherco
advantage.
Canada guys.
So which
Yeah.
which ISDEs were you at, Jared, again?
So I did
Recently?
it recently. So Argentina, we did the last 3 years: Argentina, France, and Italy. And then I had a 3-year hiatus or 2-year hiatus, and then I did Slovakia, Argentina, Italy. All
Gotcha. So all of them except Slovakia, I think, were a lot of gross, dusty hardpack. So I imagine you
yeah,
felt quite at
I
home.
loved it. So good. Well, except for Argentina, this last one was, I don't know, there's something special about that place that I never want to ride ever again. But it was dusty and hard packed, and like the, I don't know, it just was gross. I couldn't go fast. I didn't feel like, I thought I was gonna die multiple times. So I think I just rode pretty tentatively. But that dirt is something else. I'd ride the grossest, dustiest hard pack within 10 hours of my house 400 times over before I ever want to ride that ever again. How did you feel about it?
Oh man. Well, first off, you said you went to Argentina twice. So you were like me in the sense that you knew what you were getting into when you signed up for this. So can I really be, I mean, I can be sorry for you, but I don't know that I could be that sorry for either you or me because we knew. We knew and we still went. And it was funny because so many of the people that qualified for the States as club riders were like so excited, like South America, this is going to be so cool. And I didn't have the heart to tell them what Argentina was like. I'm like, you know what? Let them let them enjoy this, and then we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
Um,
It
so how
I
I
was
don't,
feel about Argentina is very mixed, honestly, because so the riding for the most part, I'm kind of with you. It was vaguely terrifying at times. I mean, some of it was fun, like the gravel washes and some of that stuff where I felt like I could sort of predict what was going to happen with the bike was nice. And I rode really, really well. Like I'd never won ISDE tests before. I didn't think Argentina would be the place I'd start doing that, but like that was pretty cool. My team obviously did really well. I am in relatively good shape and I come from a place where it does get kind of hot. So, I mean, not 115 in the shade usually, but I at least kind of knew enough to start drinking early. So the heat stroke and some of the things the other riders suffered early in the week, I was able to mostly, skim past without too much problem. But then, of course, there was the gross, dusty aspect of it, and the fact that I separated my shoulder at the end of day 3 really did not make for a pleasant and enjoyable 6 days.
I
So
bet.
I mean, it's not funny that you blew up your shoulder, obviously. I mean,
No, no,
that would
hey,
have that would
listen,
have
listen.
sucked.
In retrospect, I found that the very best and most entertaining stories I get normally arise out of some tragic misfortune. So, like, I'm happy I got the story. I'm not happy I had to do it, but at least there's something you're welcome to laugh. It's funny in kind of a horrible way, and I can respect that.
But here's the thing. So I think I was in Oregon, or I just we Oregon is the round you missed of
Correct.
Endurocross to go to ISDE. And I was down there and talking to you, and I think it was when I was traveling back on the Monday, and that might have been day 1 or day 2 of ISDE. I can't remember now. But you were sort of saying like, hey, like keep it on the down low, reporter guy. But you were having like some pretty serious bike issues, and you were worried that your bike was even going to get through. And then I heard, a few things, and like I was like, oh, Rachel ran into some trouble. I didn't realize like you came off the bike and blew up your shoulder trouble. I thought like literally your bike had just given up the ghost.
Well, one thing I can say, when the bike gives up the ghost, there's very little you can do about that.
Yeah.
I can keep going. So if I had to pick between the two, I would much rather endure grievous bodily harm at the 6 days because I can probably still continue. If the bike gives up the ghost, you're done. There's very little like if you blow up an engine, you just can sit there and look sadly at your bike until the sweep comes for you. Like at least when it's you that's hurt, you can sort of push through that. It's the same reason at the checkpoints. Almost always look over the bike before I drink, eat, take care of myself. It's like the cowboys used to say, you take care of the horse first, because without the
Yep.
horse, you're done.
Yeah. Gear first,
So if
right?
I had to pick, now the as far as the bike problems, we ended up. I tried a bunch of different stuff to fix it. End of day 1, morning of day 2, and we're not totally sure which of the things I did fixed it. So we're kind of still uncertain. But the leading hypothesis was a combination of Argentinian fuel not being very good, which I would have, we probably could have predicted that if we'd thought a little harder about it. The extreme heat and the way the bike was mapped. We think my gas was actually boiling as I was riding, and it was causing, if you've got bubbles in your gas, sometimes the fuel pump is going to grab air and not fuel, and the bike's going to run weird and sputtery. And basically, that's what would happen towards the midpoint and into the tests. The bike would be like, pop, pop, like enough that spectators were turning to look at me, and it was not because I was going fast. They're like, oh my God, what is wrong with that motorcycle? Even one of the boyfriend of one of my competitors from Great Britain was their taste rider, and she actually texted me that night because we're buddies. She's like, "Dude, is your bike okay?" My boyfriend said it
Uh,
was the worst sounding thing he'd ever heard, and this is only day 1. And I'm like, I don't want to really talk about it right now. And then it also led to what I call like my nightmare scenario at 6 days. I can work on the motorcycle, but it's not really my strong suit. I'm clumsy. I drop tools. I drop bolts. I panic sometimes, and that's under good circumstances. So my fear going into the work period the morning of day 2 is like I am somehow going to drop route points trying to fix this thing and ruin this for the team. Like I'm going to cost us the world trophy because I can't work on my dirt bike, and that is terrifying. Like the embarrassment I would feel, I cannot even begin to describe.
but that's something
So
though. When we were chatting a little bit while you were down there, you never came right out and said that, but reading between the lines, it wasn't very hard to read between the lines and pick up that you were so scared you were going to blow it for Team USA. And I was like, well, you can only do what you can do, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of an open book. I'm not good at hiding when
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
nervous or excited or really any emotion. I sort of wear them on my sleeve most of the time, for better or worse.
Yeah. So so you blow up your shoulder, and I
I
believe,
suppose I
correct
should
me if I'm
probably
wrong.
talk about how I did that, right?
Yes.
That
Let's go.
is probably relevant to the. Okay. So it was funny because another friend of mine, Taylor Jones, she recently retired, but she raced in the States for many, many years. Australian originally. She holds a US green card, but still is an Australian citizen. So when she goes to 6 days, she represents the Aussies. And we actually got hurt in the same section, same test, same corner, same rock. Which, when you think about the odds of that happening over an entire 6 days, it's just almost beyond belief. And I, so at 6 days, we rode 2 laps around the course on the same day. So you'd see all the tests twice. Now, my first lap through, we'd had, I don't really remember the first test of the day that much. It didn't make much of an impression on me, to be honest. And then the second test of the day was, I was calling it Mini Erzberg because it was like there was a dam and it looked like there'd been some recent mining or blasting, and you kind of know what the Erzberg prologue looks like up and down these big haul roads and rocky and gravelly and stuff. That was test two. And then test three was this big gravel wash kind of thing down by a reservoir. And the second test of the day I really, really liked. In fact, when I was walking it, I'm like, this is the one. I think I can win this one. This is finally going to be my first test win. So, first time through that test, I ended up coming in, and our board worker. So, for Team USA, we've usually got someone, I don't know exactly. I know you guys are a lot lower on manpower than we are most of the time. So, I don't know if this is a thing you guys do for Canada, but we usually have someone at the special check or special tests there to take your fanny pack, whatever you want to take off, um, give you water if you need it, and write down the times so you can see your time relative to whatever country's closest to you. Like, just kind of give you a vibe on where you are. So I come in, and our board worker goes, "Excellent job, Rachel. Brandy only beat you by like 5 seconds." And I'm like, okay. I made some mistakes. I blew a couple corners. I think if I clean it up, I can come around and win this one the second time. So then
Right
we go
on.
to test three, the one I ended up not liking at all. I promise this is going somewhere, by the way. I know it's kind of drawn out, but I'll try and speed it along. So go to the third test of the day, and I hated that test. The entire time I felt like I was going to die. Jared, you rode this test. Did you also have vibes that you were going to die in this particular one, or was the going to die feeling other places?
Mine was like full time.
Okay,
Every test.
gotcha.
Well, rental
So,
bike.
oh yeah, that also doesn't. Were you the one who lost your suspension? Were you the guy on stock suspension?
I rode a bone stock 300. Yeah,
But it was Tyler that got his
You're my
suspension.
hero.
Tyler rode bone. So Tyler rode a bone stock bike too because he lost all of his luggage too. So him and I were on bone stock bikes.
Yeah, that's another fun thing about Argentina, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Moving
rode
on.
that test, thought to myself, I'm gonna die. Managed to not die and went, okay. Start the loop again, get to test two, come through the finish, and our board, I really thought I'd won it, and the board worker was like, well, this is interesting. And I'm like, man, I know Brandy's faster than me, but that's a little rude, you know? And then that turns out that wasn't what he was talking about. He said, I didn't think I'd have to write it down to the milliseconds, so I don't know who won that test. Brandy and I had
Ooh.
ran identical times, and it was decided by less than a second, so we didn't know who had won that test. So we gave each other a friendly fist bump and moved on down the trail, and then I rode an hour of transfer, not knowing if I'd won my first special test or not. It was very anticlimactic. And then when I get to the checkpoint before test three, I'm finally able to look at my phone. They hand it over, and I look at it, and I'm like, I won the test. But the only people there were Brandy and our chase rider Meg, and it felt like the other thing too with Brandy, we're friends, and she's my teammate, but she also won every single test at a 6 days one time. The only person in history to do it. So me celebrating the one time ever in 8 years of riding 6 days, I won a single test felt kind of lame, you know? Like, so I was over the moon, but I'm trying to be so chill about it. And she's like, good job, Rachel. And we, like, celebrated that I beat her at something for once in my career and then moved on with it. So I'm like,
So
well,
So was
But
your
we're
shoulder
getting to the crash
already?
part.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
So
no,
it
we're
was
getting there.
not
I'm so
separated.
sorry. Like
Okay.
we're working on it. I'm trying to hurry this up, I promise. And feel free to edit
No,
out whatever
no,
parts of this you
you're
need to
good.
make it.
You're good.
So then we go into test 3. And so my goal for us as a team was obviously to win, but you got to have some like individual goals while you're there too, in case the team has a problem or just because it's also fun that way. So I had wanted to finish in the top 3 for the week because I'd never done that, and I wanted to win a test. So when I go into scary test, I'm like, you know what? I just want to test. I have no reason to charge through this. It scared me so bad last time. I'm going to ride at 80%.
Yeah.
And I still crashed and destroyed my shoulder. So,
Oh no.
but the reason I bring all of this up is because Taylor and I hit the same rock. Like we talked it over and concluded, yes, we did indeed hit the same rock in the same corner. When I crashed, all I did was separate my shoulder, which again is a lot. But when Taylor crashed, she separated her shoulder, tore a rotator cuff, and broke every single rib on her left side. I only broke one. Like, Taylor
Oh.
messed herself up bad, and I think the difference might have been that I was in a, like, Australia was behind us. They were all riding so hard to try and catch us, whereas I think my 80% was the difference between I only did the shoulder and one rib, and Taylor did, like, everything.
Hmm.
So in a way, the timing of winning that test worked out perfectly and kind of mitigated the damage. So as far as the crash itself, I didn't ever see the rock I hit, and the only reason I realized which rock it was is I finally, like, the next day my times were not anything to write home about, so I actually stopped in the test in that corner and looked for the rock because I'd been so mad that I'd never saw it, like, never even knew what I hit. I'm like, I'm gonna, like, you know what? I'm already setting ridiculously slow times. I'm going to take the 10 seconds and satisfy
Like,
my curiosity and
were
figure
you
out where the rock is.
did part of you want to pick it up and bring it home as a souvenir?
Part of me wanted to find it later and pulverize it with a sledgehammer, except I couldn't lift my arm over my head anymore. Um, but so when I crashed, I had just been clicking my 350 up into fifth gear, so I was going pretty fast. And I remember the shock hitting and unloading, and I went over the bars. I land like when you know you're getting ready to crash, a lot of times you can do things to make it less bad.
Yeah.
So, like in an ideal circumstances, I would have moved my head and like tucked my shoulder around and kind of rolled. Unfortunately, it caught me by such surprise. All I had time to do was move my head, which I guess of all the things to hit, the head is the thing you want to least hit against the ground going 60 miles an hour. So I got the head moved and didn't concuss myself, which was great. But I did still drive. Basically, the shoulder hit first and it knocked the entire thing backwards. And then I bounced and then I hit again, and that's when I did the rib. I landed on something pointy and eventually skidded to a stop. I had gravel in my boots. I had gravel in my sports bra. I had gravel in my goggles. Like, I just, full of gravel. And
Wow.
I, like, kind of, like, do the dead fish thing there for a second, like, trying to breathe. And I sit up and I can't see my motorcycle. But what I can see is that there's an FIM official running towards me as fast as he can. And there is a bunch of ribbon down off to my left. So I'm able to conclude, like, using my Sherlock Holmes deduction skills here. The bike went that way, and I can't let the FIM official get to me because if he stops and pulls me for a medical check in the middle of a special test, we're gonna lose. So I stagger in the direction I think my motorcycle went. Eventually found it. The motorcycle is a mess, but I'm not even worried about that. Oh, I should also mention, so I've been doing this thing at 6 days where I wear my tool pack in the test, which I know a lot of
Yeah.
people don't do. But I figure, like, my odds of, catching some baling wire or something in the special test and then not having side cuts, like, that is absolutely, if that's going to happen to anyone at this event, it would be me. And then I'd be there, like, trying to chew through the baling wire with my teeth or something stupid. And on top of that, when I was riding the 350, it felt like sometimes I was just, like, a little bit too small for the bike. Like, I'm not a very big rider, and a lot of times I couldn't physically put enough weight or pressure into pegs or so I figured if my pack makes me 10 pounds heavier, that's 10 more pounds of momentum I have to throw around, and it seemed to work
Totally.
really well. I was riding great, so I kept the pack on. It tore the pack off. I don't know where the pack went. Auntie was actually super mad at me because there were like titanium wrenches and stuff in there that KTM provided, and we never
Oh
got
no.
those. But I like to think to myself that some poor Argentinian man probably fed his family for 2 months on those titanium wrenches. So,
And
that
you
was
know
my
what?
good deed.
I think the KTM group can afford it.
They can. They can. Absolutely. So I get the bike picked up and I take off, and I hear Jess Gardner coming behind me, so I pretend like I can't get out of the way. And then I hear my teammate Corey coming and get out of her way, because, still a team player through and through all the way. Get to the end of the test, and like I could tell I was in a like pain, but I was also in enough shock it didn't really hit me until I stopped.
Shock is your friend.
How exactly? So I knew the bike, like the front end was twisted, like bars are this way, and it turns out the bike was actually jacked up bad enough when I went to loosen the pinch bolts on the axle, the whole axle jumped an inch to the right. Like it was horrible. I broke the subframe and zip tied it back together. Um, caved the silencer in, but again, I wasn't going fast enough anymore for it to matter whether I had good power out of the bike. Um, I think I ended up having to replace the bars. So yeah, just really did a number on the motorcycle. But when I realized my shoulder was bad, I had our team manager Auntie was there, and he wanted me to put the bike on the stand so he could like do a walk around and then tell the people at the paddock what I was going to need to fix the bike with. I went to pull up on the little rubber grommet thing that holds your um, side stand in place, and I almost threw up. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna use the other arm for that, like that picking up motion. Oh God, that hurt. Um, so I made my way back to the pits. Didn't drop any routes or anything, but it wasn't like a fun ride, obviously, after that. And got the bike fixed enough, I guess. Like I said, I was no longer going fast. Going fast was that whole idea went out the window as soon as I hit the deck. Now it's just okay. Most of the women's teams have already lost riders. We have a lead over Australia. Maybe we can still hold this together. Like, Brandy is a superhuman. Corey's doing pretty decent. And then when I found out Taylor got hurt, I'm like, okay, great. We're playing man. Well, not great. I felt really bad for her. Nobody should have to endure that. But from a team perspective, it's like, okay, now we're playing man to man defense. All I have to do is beat their injured rider, and we still win.
Yeah. Well, and for those who don't know, the penalty in ISDE for losing a rider is 3 hours each day. Am I right on
Yes.
that one?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't want to lose
three
a
hour
rider.
penalty. Yeah. I mean, it happened to the Canadian women's team. We lost two on day one, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a
Brutal.
rough go round for you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah. So I got through day 4. That was the day I was the most worried about because it had that transfer up through the mountains. Jared, do you want to describe the transfer up through the mountains? I'll let you talk a little.
I don't even know if I remember much anymore. I pretty much got on the airplane and forgot about that whole trip as quickly
Was
as
that the one
possible.
that was off the highway that you could see everyone trying to go through? Because there was one
Oh
section that
yeah,
everyone was falling down that we could see
and that
right by the
Ev-
long.
lake.
Everyone was falling down describes that section pretty well, so maybe that was visible from there.
The hard
It
Yeah.
was
enduro
like,
transfer.
it was, yes, no, it was genuinely approaching like not the major features of a hard enduro, like not the waterfall you have to splatter up or anything, but like the trail you'd use to get to the hard stuff at a hard enduro. Like, it was
Hmm.
definitely jagged and rocky, and I felt every single one of those rocks, and there were drop offs and it just was really not fun. But I also remember, this is going to sound weird, I was thankful that of my teammates, I'm the one who got hurt because we needed, I figured we would still need Brandy to be setting really fast times to win because I'm going slow now. And Corey, love Corey. She is not really known for her technical riding. She's made, like, she comes from a moto background originally, and she has made fantastic improvements in that domain, but it's still just not her thing. So I figured of the 3 people, if anyone had to get hurt, it needed to be me because I would be able to get through it. And I also want to give a shout out to Corey here because she was a real stand up teammate. She followed me We were on the same row that day, and she followed me through every single transfer and made sure I made it through. Even stopped like a couple times because that upward pulling motion, remember, that's the one that hurt. So anytime I dropped the bike, like it was exceptionally painful to pick it back up. So there were a couple times where Corey just leaned her bike over and walked up and picked me and my motorcycle up and like patted us on the back and got us going again.
I
So
mean, this is
I
one of the
really,
really
this is a
the really
team. This is a team event. You have to
yeah,
remember that.
yeah, and that doesn't happen in moto. Like
No,
it's
absolutely
so
not.
rare in the sport. And maybe Courtney and Jared, I mean, you can talk about that too, like the team aspect of ISDE and how much it matters.
Yeah, and it's not even just the riders; it's everything. When especially at a 6 days, it's everybody that comes together. Like just riding as through something like that, it's so nice to have everything figured out outside of the track too. Like Courtney is such a solid person to have with for me because like I don't even want to think about doing anything else. Like I probably wouldn't even eat if I wouldn't. I could probably just get off the track and go to bed. So it's nice having that team aspect and then between the riders, it's cool. It's like I came from motocross, so it's like even your friends aren't your friends, and where when I got into enduro racing, especially the 6 day stuff, and my best friends now are the guys that I try to beat every weekend. So that's been a huge thing for me, and I think that's why the sport is growing so much in the enduro side of things, is because you can have that same aspect of a team sport at the same time and trying to beat each other, the fun part and the competitive part at the same time. So that's a huge thing for 6 days. That's why I keep going back. Honestly, like I love doing it, and I get better every year, and that's one of my goals. But I also couldn't give up, spending a week, 2 weeks with my, some of my closest friends, walking around, being hooligans for a week beforehand, and then going out and doing it again on the track. So I think there needs to be a camera. Our teammate in Italy, Cade Walker, when he was with us, he was like, "You guys just need to have a camera follow you for your entire week of walking tests. Like that's enough media comedic action for an entire year." I'm like, it's a good idea.
I
But it is.
tried. I really tried.
You
Yeah,
did a good job with the media
it's
this year in
it's
Argentina.
the
Thank
media
you.
would probably be, if there's anything further than R rated, that would probably be it though. So that'd be the problem.
But when you
I
look
was
at it
gonna
as a
say I'm
sport,
not sure having a camera following us around is a good idea. The more I think about it, but
Well, for
it'd
like
certainly be it'd
blackmail.
certainly be entertaining.
Yeah.
so my minor experience of that last season was at Red Bull Outliers, and I was doing a track walk. I was following around
Oh
Billy
no.
Bolt, Manny, uh, you know, Matty Green, Johnny Walker, and then along the way we come up over one of the big features and look down the hill. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, what a great view of the Badlands. And like, look down here, and that's a pretty brutal cliff over there. And I was like, who are those guys? And it was Team Canada ISDE members, Tyler Mdalia and Phil Cheney.
Of course.
And like there was no one around. And it was hilarious. They were just killing themselves as Tyler was dry humping Phil just in the middle of the Badlands at Red Bull Outliers. I was like, well, this is a moment. Not. I actually have a picture of it that I've never shown those guys, so I might have to
Oh,
bust
that's
that out at some point.
yeah, I need to see that. We
Yeah,
all need to see that.
it was epic.
Yeah.
But really,
Speaking of Phil, okay, so
yeah.
just Canadian ISDE stuff. If Jared's giving me moto riding lessons, I want Phil to teach me to dance. Like, man, at the after party, he was cleaning up. Like, I got two left feet, but man, like if I could dance like that, oh,
so Courtney, this was at the post race event, and just maybe Courtney, you can set the scene of what happened there because it was epic. And
Yes.
also the question I want to know is how many views does that reel have?
Like the one of the tire changes or the
No, no,
ones
no,
of
no. The
Phil
one of
dancing with
Phil
Garcia?
dancing. Phil just dancing with
Oh,
Phil, I think.
God. Yeah, that was insane. You
Nobody
know,
could keep up.
No.
you couldn't keep
He was in
up.
a class of his own. You couldn't dance with Phil. I tried. It did not happen, but
And the best thing about that is that Phil may have had 3 sips of his drink, and that's just Phil on a daily basis. It was
no,
hilarious. Like,
that's terrifying. That's terrifying. That's genuinely
uh,
terrifying. I assumed he was drunk. You're telling me he
I
wasn't even drunk and could do that?
No.
no, it was like 1 sip of alcohol, and then all of a sudden, like close off on the Hulk. Like it was just crazy.
he just went, and this is not meant in any way to be an insult, but he went full Quebecois, it looked like. It
Yeah,
was
for
amazing.
sure.
Yeah,
So,
and he
how,
did rip his pants and his shirt off.
The pants were by accident. That was a rip.
Oh
The
yeah, he was
shirt
doing like
was
the
yeah,
walk with his legs. So
I'll put a
good.
link into the video, but Courtney, was it you that took the reel or put up the reel of that?
I had some videos of it, but I think it was uh Phil. I had some clips of it, but I think
Yeah.
Phil actually made his own reel
Okay.
of the
I'm
dancing.
there's got like I would love to know the
It's on his
engagement.
page.
Yeah, I'll find it, but I'd love
I'll
to
see
know
if I
the
can
number of
find it.
views. Yeah. um, so I guess getting back, so now we're back at ISDE. You've got a third
Yes.
degree separated shoulder. You've got a broken rib. Your bike's twisted up, and you get through the day. You get through the paddock. The next day, you're out, and you kind of like
Well,
dropped a bomb on the
this
world.
is where I have to give another shout out to the like Jared was saying, it's not just about your teammates on the bike, it's your teammates off the bike. Doc McGee was an absolute lifesaver. He taped up my shoulder the morning of day 4. And, it's funny, of all things for me to not like, I don't like needles. I really don't like needles. I was the kid who you had to like hold me down to make me get my shots every year. So he had lidocaine injections he was giving me, and he had to talk me into it really hard the evening of day 3. He's like, listen, you need this. Trust me, you need this. Think about that transfer. Think about your country. Think about your team, and sit down and let me jab this gigantic needle that looks like you should be administering horse medicine in it, in your
Oh,
arm. And I went, okay. So I sat there and tried not to look at the needle. He would give it to me in the morning, and then again at the halfway point through, well, a little later than the halfway point, because I guess I should mention I had to change a tire with the shoulder separated also,
Yeah.
heck.
That's
because
hardcore.
I knew the rear tire was not going to last through the next 2 days. Like, it was already starting to spin on some of the silty climbs, and I figured, well, if I'm already riding injured and this tire, the other thing too, I know of at least one incident, Mandy Maston in Greece in I think 2008. She actually had a bib meltdown, like disintegrate due to heat and stress. And I figured Argentina had a lot of heat and stress. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to end up riding 200 miles, whatever that is in kilometers. I'm sorry, guys, I can't translate that in my head.
It's a lot.
Um,
Neither can we.
I'm not going to ride, yes, I'm not going to ride that far only to DNF due to a mechanical that I could have prevented. So that was the other thing I did the evening of day 3. I got the Rabaconda out, and that was one area where I made a slight mistake. I should have set up a time lapse video of me trying all these different ways to change a tire with a separated shoulder and broken rib. Like, at one point I'm standing on top of the Rabaconda and on top of the tire, trying to sit on the arm
Jeez.
enough to get it to, like, because I couldn't push with my right arm because the shoulder was separated, and I couldn't push with my left arm because it aggravated the rib. So I'm like, I couldn't really push with either arm. So I'm like laying on the thing, I'm sitting on the thing, I'm trying to use my knee as like a hook to push down. And what ended up working is I flipped the arm upside down. So instead of curving down, it curved up. So physics wise,
uh,
that gave me just enough leverage. And once I got those 4 spoons in, it was pretty much okay. I could mostly use my left arm. Like, the first 4, like when you pull them both over, that was also a bit painful. But once I got that part, it was manageable. So I ended up changing the tire, I think, in 10 minutes, the rear,
Wow.
which
That's
is not a
that's
very
still
hardcore.
good
good.
time for 6 days. But for the limitations I was under, I was so like,
Yeah.
that's the proudest I've ever been of a tire change.
No
For
So I did
sure.
that
doubt.
the evening of day 4 after I got everything done. So I actually, for that day, made sure a little later in the day to get the second lidocaine shot, because I'm like, I actually need this to be in full effect while I'm trying to change the tire, not necessarily while I'm on my bike and riding. And also day 4, Taylor ended up withdrawing from the race, so that gave us a lot more cushion. So I was a lot less scared of dropping route points in the work area trying to do that. And the other thing too, I need to just give a quick shout out to Taylor. I cannot imagine the severity of her injuries to require her, like, that would require her to pull in. She once broke her tibia and fibia on the first lap of a GNCC and finished second at that GNCC, if
No.
I remember correctly. Beat
Oh.
me with a broken tib fib, which makes you feel real good about yourself. But she is a legit badass. So for her to pull in, and she basically said, like, I'm really badly hurt and I'm scared of that transfer and there's cliffs and stuff and I'm not always tall enough to get a foot down. I can't. She's like, I can't do it. And she's like, this is like, so for Taylor to not be able to do it, I can't even imagine what sort of pain she had to be in. So
Yeah.
basically, I just want to make sure everyone knows that just because Taylor quit and I was able to keep going, that's really no statement of anything other than the severity of our injuries and the fact that I'm an inch taller than she is. So,
Wow.
Right.
but it took the heat off us for sure. Then day 5, I was actually kind of relieved for because I knew I wouldn't have to ever ride the mountain transfer again. And it also it was a shorter day, if I recall. I was a little concerned about the unknown aspect and the fact that now Corey and I are no longer on the same row, so I don't have one of my teammates behind me, but I do have good relationships with a lot of the other women. So I figured if I was really in trouble, one of the four, like if I'm underneath my bike or something, somebody will stop and make sure I'm not
Yeah.
dead, probably.
So
So,
so I just want to ask you something. When you say like this is, you said the unknown. I think, as I recall, days 1 and 2 were the same course, forward and backward,
yes.
and then days
Mm.
3 and 4, same course.
No, no, no.
No, only
Forwards and
days one and
forwards.
two. Oh, okay. And then
Well, no,
day
no. So,
five.
no, no. Sorry, I've done a poor job of articulating that. The courses were the same days 1 or 2, or 1 and 2, and they were the
Yep.
same days 3 and 4. But you said
Right.
forwards and backwards. We never
Oh,
reversed
okay.
direction.
Oh,
They were
okay. It
ran
was
forwards
still
each time.
okay. My bad. So yeah. So when you say
No, it's all
the
good.
unknown, it was like the one test that it had been several days since you'd walked it, no doubt.
Yes, but it was more, again, it was more the transfer I was concerned about
Oh,
because
okay.
now my test times didn't matter. All that
Yep.
mattered is I needed to finish. But it's funny you should mention that because I thought winning my first ISDE test would be my proudest accomplishment I brought home from Argentina. And then I thought maybe it'd be when we won the world trophy and I rode a very long way with that shoulder separated. But what ended up being my proudest accomplishment is I won a special test by 15 seconds in my category with the separated shoulder. I was really proud of that one. So what had happened is, again, it was a loop. So we ran the test once, and it was the water test. It was the only test with water, the only
Yeah.
place that had water, if I
Oh
recall, in pretty much
yeah.
all
Oh
of
yeah.
That
Argentina.
was an epic test.
And
Yeah.
I had been so excited for that one. That was the other one besides Mini Erzberg that I thought, hey, this is my kind of thing. I think I can win this one. And I remember the first lap through riding around so mad that I'm like, I'm having to be all cautious. I've got my, which that was something else. I learned to kind of tuck my elbow into my hip in almost like a full chicken wing. And that kind of braced and supported it. And the other thing I need to do is give a shout out to one of our club guys, Trevor Maley. He has had shoulder problems in the past, and he has this EVS brace thing that like holds your shoulders together and helps hold
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
Because that was the other thing that bothered me besides the pain. I could feel the shoulder moving in and out. So
Ooh,
Doc actually ended up having to give me an anti-nausea medication halfway through day 5 too, because it was gross.
that's hardcore.
Made me want to throw up. So, but the brace fixed the in and out thing. I didn't have to deal with that part anymore. Now it just hurt instead of hurting and being gross. So that helped. So I rode that test, and I guess I should also mention during this time, the evening of day 4, Brandy crashed and broke a collarbone because,
Yeah. Because why not?
of course
Why
that had
not?
to happen. Why not, And the running joke in
Teamwork.
the container, yes, the running joke in the container was that we needed Corey to stay healthy and intact because otherwise we would not be able to lift the trophy. Neither
Ah.
Brandy
Yeah.
nor I could get our arms over our head. We're like, we're just gonna have to like sit down on the stage next to the trophy and smile because none of us are gonna be able to. get it up. And in fact, you'll see in our podium photo, Brandy and I are just sitting there like this, and Corey's got it fully over her head. She had to bear the weight of the trophy. But
Well, that was another
so
moment in
that
Endurocross too, though. Was at the end when you won, like a week
we'll
later.
we'll get to that part too. The So that test, I wrote it the first time and I was mad. I was mad the entire time. I'm like, this would be so much fun. I would be going so fast. This is so stupid. Why couldn't have this test been on day one? And I get to the end of it, and the board worker said, hey, you were second in that test. I'm like, no, I wasn't. And he's like, well, look at the times. And I go, I was second in that test. And he's like, the fast Australian only beat you by like 5 seconds. And I'm like, okay, 5 seconds. I can do that. I think I can do that. So I come around the next time. And I figured too, at that point, we're over halfway through the day, so even if I crash and hit my shoulder again, I can probably still survive. So I went as all out as I could possibly go. I passed, I think, 4 people in my class in that test, which granted, I was starting pretty near the back of the pack. So it's not like I was passing the super fast ones, but like I felt really good and I came through, and sure enough, won it by over 10 seconds. So that's probably going to go down as one of my proudest moments of my career, was that I was able to ride through the pain and still win.
That's
So
awesome.
that's
Wow.
mental. So you do that, and then I'm starting to look ahead, sitting back here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, covering this thing, and I'm looking ahead to the next weekend in Reno, Nevada, for the finale of the 2023 Endurocross season. And I, you know, being me and being really subtle, I remember messaging you and saying like, "Hey, so what do you think? You gonna be able to ride?" And your response was awesome, and you were just like, "Hey, like I want this thing." And you're like, I've done the math. I think I just got to like finish, and I should be okay if all things remain the same. And
Yes, and as it turns out, I was not only correct in that well, I actually wasn't correct in that I just had to
yeah,
finish. I had to leave the gate. That was all
yeah,
that had to happen.
yeah,
And there was some confusion because a lot of people did not realize that the promoter had given the women's Endurocross field a drop, because
yeah,
basically Shelby and I went to them at the beginning when the series was launched, and they're like, guys, nobody ever puts a race, especially like a national level race, on top of 6 days. That's just not done. And they're like, well, stadium dates and availability and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, your top 2 in the series last year are not going to show up for this series if you can't make it so we can potentially win. So, and I'd already, Shelby and I both spoke with, actually, I think I might have done the legwork on this. But anyway, all the other women agreed in the interest of fair play. So it wasn't like we were just ramrodding this through. Like the entire class came to a consensus that, hey, this is the most fair way to do it. Let's be supportive of our various national teams and make this happen. So
yeah.
there
I
were a
think
lot
in
of
it,
people who were, yeah, under the impression that I had to win in order to make up for the race I wasn't at. But no, all I had to do was leave the start gate.
I think in my preview for that final round, I think I was running through some of the scenarios in, and I said like, let's just call this the Rachel Goodish rule. Yeah, where
Oh,
you
well,
got to
that
drop
makes
the
it sound like they're playing favorites for me, you
no,
know?
no, no,
I mean,
no, it
they
wasn't.
kind
It
of were,
wasn't.
they were playing favorites for Shelby and I, but like,
But
yeah,
that was it. There was confusion, and I wanted to like put it out there. And it was funny because the rule was actually
yeah.
written really ambiguously. And I remember asking the Endurocross series, I was like, I believe the word they use like riders may drop one result. And I was like, well, may makes it sound like they can if they want, but they don't have to. And I didn't bring that up with you because I was like, well, whatever. I'm sure the spirit of the
Well,
rule is good enough,
it's
but
it's funny. I was a pre-law student in college, and I've
there you go.
definitely picked up on the use of may. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
went and directly asked the promoter, I'm like, how are you applying this rule and what will the ruling be? And I asked him about 3 or 4 different scenarios. That way I had like, I didn't record him saying this or
No, no.
anything, but I made sure I knew exactly where I stood on that. But and then as far as the race itself, so Endurocross, like I came back from 6 days. I was really happy with that. I obviously did not train that week. I laid in bed and moaned mostly. Um, watched other people ride dirt bikes at Nick Thompson's house. Like it wasn't bad, but just tried to rest up and heal as much as I could. And then Doc McGee gave me 1 dose of the lidocaine to take
Yeah.
home with me as like a little doggy bag
A
from six
gift.
days, you know. A
A
gift,
little
a parting gift.
parting
Yeah.
gift. Yeah, yeah.
Now, the bad thing about the lidocaine injections, though, they only last for about 4 hours. So I ended up Like, I needed to do all the qualifying and all the daytime racing without it, if I wanted to be able to have it for the night show. And I mean, yes, I could have just left the gate, but actually, what rating is this podcast? Can I curse? Am I allowed to
You
use
can
curse words on this podcast? No?
100%. Please.
Oh, I am. Okay. That leaving the gate seemed like a chicken shit way to win a title. Like, where's the fun in that? Where's the glory in that? No, I'm not going to leave the gate and pull off. I couldn't bring myself to, even though, like, that's the logical thing to do. Like, no, absolutely not happening. So I ended up setting fast qualifying time, which was really surprising. And I actually want to give another shout out to just how generally supportive of everyone enduro riders are. Even, Shelby wasn't racing, obviously, but we've been friends and competitors for a long time. She showed up at my van to do my tape job that morning. You know, EMT slash enduro rider. She absolutely knows how to tape up a wound well. So she got my shoulder all taped up. And then during the qualifying, so the first qualifier we go out for is just a timed practice, and that'll be your gate pick during the qualifier. So it's not like we're racing each other at that point. We're just like trying to set a hot lap time. So I fell off the stupid tire stack and couldn't figure out how to pick the bike up because, like, I can't really do that
That
yet.
was
So I'm,
quite a
like,
moment.
trying
I
to
was
pick it up.
watching that.
Oh, you saw
Yeah.
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
like trying to pick up the bike this way and trying to pick up the bike that way, and then I'm finally just reduced to looking at the bike sadly. And Kylie Sweeten stops in the other lane and puts her bike on the side stand and walks over and picks up my bike for me so I can keep going.
I got to look back. I might have pictures of
Yeah.
that.
Oh, if you do, please send them to me.
You bet.
But
Yeah.
so yeah, she said afterwards, she's like, "Yeah, I already set what I thought was a pretty good lap time, and I didn't really want to see you blow out your shoulder even more trying to pick your bike up." She's like, "But I also didn't think you were going to repay me by then setting a faster lap time." She's like, "That was kind of rude of you." So we
Kind
had a
of
good laugh
rude.
about that. And then during the, well, I guess too, the other thing, it's, and this isn't live, so you can cut out as much of my stories as you want because I
Yeah,
know I can
yeah.
be a bit long-winded. Uh,
This is awesome.
So my mom's a nurse, but she's newborn intensive care, so she doesn't often have to administer lidocaine injections to separated AC joints on infants. That's not really a problem they have.
No.
But she
For the
had watched
record,
Doc McGee.
I'm making a barfy face right now.
Yeah. I have a couple
So
time when you talk about it.
so she had watched Doc McGee do it, but she was really, really nervous to have to do the injection. And I would have just asked Shelby to do it, except she's doing the announcing. I can't like pull her out of the booth real quick to doctor me up. And at the same time, too, I don't really want to do this in a public place. Like, I don't. My mom's like, "Where should we do this?" And I'm like, "Well, not the stand." She's like, "Do you want to go in the women's bathroom?" And I'm like, "No, I do not want to be locked in a stall in the women's bathroom while you try and administer medication to my shoulder. That sounds very unsanitary, and also, that
It's a
would
bad
drive this
image.
whole thing. Like, all of this is so absurd as it is. That would drive it to the point of like
No.
beyond absurdity. That might break me finally. So we ended up going down into the pits during one of the pro. Uh, Mains just to make sure there would be few people down there paying any attention. And I pull the tape, I get my chest protector off, I get my brace off, I roll the tape back, I pull my arm, and Mom and I both look like we're going to throw up at this point because, again, I don't like needles and she
Oh,
is terrified. And I
And I'll
go,
point
"Okay,
out that this was
listen."
not necessarily sanitary
Oh,
there either.
yes.
This was a horse
Well,
barn.
it felt more sanitary than the bathroom. I don't know. Anyway,
I think it's like 50-50.
so and I look at her and I'm like, Mom, you don't have to do this. We really don't have to do this. Like, I don't technically have to do anything other than leave the gate. And even without the lidocaine, I still finished second in the qualifier to Melissa Harton. Like, it'll be fine, probably. We don't have to do this. And she just kind of steals herself because this is my moment. And she gets the
Oh, bless your mom.
bless my mom. That is, if those are the most honest words I can possibly say. She is a saint. She has had to put up with things no mother should ever have to put up with, and asking her to inject drugs into my joint in a horse barn before a dirt bike race is
it's
definitely on
amazing.
that list. But I was a little frustrated though because she got the needle in and then she looked at me and went, "Do you think it's in the right place?" And I'm like, "I don't
Oh
care.
my god.
Just inject it. Your wig, like, just do it already. Like, I'm sitting there looking at her, looking at the needle, trying to decide if I'm like, it's already in. You are not pulling that back out to try again. So we're just gonna hope this is close enough. Because no. So
I'm dying.
yes.
Oh
So I,
god.
like said, it's please feel free to laugh. In retrospect, it is hilarious.
That's so
So
gnarly.
we get my tape back on, we get my chest protector back on, it's time to go out for the main, and for the most part it went well. The rocks really hurt, but even worse than the rocks was like the stupid dumpster, like jumping
Yeah.
out of the dumpster. It that was rather uncomfortable, but
It was a heck of a feature. So
I
you jump into the dumpster and then jump out of the dumpster. I mean, it looked great, but
yes, and the well, dumpster diving. It's kind of has a ring to it, but the jump out of the dumpster, it was because it was just a flat land from like
yeah.
5 feet, 10 feet up, and it just what is that in meters? I don't even know
No, we don't.
the length
Nor
of.
do
Don't worry
I.
about it.
We use feet.
Okay, so as tall as I am plus a half of me,
Yeah.
if that helps, like person sized drop onto flat, sometimes with rocks, and I'm like, oh, that I might have screamed a little bit when I was hitting that.
Yeah.
But I had a good battle, I think, going. Honestly, I would probably need to watch the main again because I don't really remember all that much of it. But I even hit the finish line jump because, if we're
You
gonna do
did.
this thing,
Yeah.
we're gonna do this thing. And I took the win, and I pull off the track, and I hand my bike over, and I immediately just kind of like I wasn't sure where the TV cameras were, so like crawled behind the podium where no one could see me, like behind the banner, and just kind of for long enough to get myself back together. And I'm like,
A
I
little
hope they didn't
fetal
follow me
position
back
moment.
here. No one need. Well, yeah, like down on one knee, just kind of like, oh, that hurt a lot. But and then even in my podium speech, I think they asked how I was feeling, and I'm pretty sure I said I think I might pass out, which is really
Yeah.
not how I imagined my first Endurocross title. I didn't think that was how the speech was going to go,
Just
like when
makes
I
it more
pictured it in my
badass.
head. Yes. But yeah, so it all ended up working out. I won the Endurocross title. I don't really know if you can say I had a perfect season because I didn't win all the rounds, but I won all the rounds I was at, so I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty cool accomplishment. And
I'm not going to put an asterisk there.
well,
So one of
we do also have to mention that Shelby wasn't there, and I really hope Shelby and I are both healthy this season, so we can actually do battle in the series, and I can maybe win a title where Shelby is actually there to race against. I mean, she's got six
so
of them, but maybe
yeah.
I got a shot.
So I remember the Idaho Falls double header rounds 3 and 4, and I think it was after round 4. I did a little stand-up interview with you, and one of the things you said was, I was like, "Hey, like, you're killing this. Like, you're winning. You're running away with this thing right now." And you were like very quick to say, like, well, I'm just going to say that the reason I'm running away with this right now is because Shelby's not racing, and that was amazing. I mean, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's shouting out to your competitor, but you killed it the whole way through. And I remember that in the finale in Reno, I was like, yeah, Rachel's going to do her best. And I figured, at first I was like, you know what, she's not going to just roll the gate unless she's really, really hurting. And just from talking to you, I was like, no, it's like, I think she's going to ride. She's going to do her best. And, before I'd seen you ride, I was thinking like, top 5 for sure. Who knows? Maybe an outside shot at the podium. You never know. And then I saw you do your first hot laps, and I was like, nope, just gonna win this thing. And like I called it, and I was like, I called the shot, and I was like, I don't know how she's gonna do it, but you did, and it was just epic to watch. Like the men's finale was incredible, like with the race between Tristan and Johnny and Colton and the insanity with the points and what was going on there. But your race was just so gutty and gritty. And I think it just really defined who you are as a rider. You're versatile, you're strong, and you're gutsy as hell. I mean, it was something to watch.
Well, I'm glad we're not doing video for this because I'm blushing right now and really embarrassed. So, thank you for the compliments, I
Aw.
guess.
Well, you deserve it. You earned it.
Huge accomplishment.
Huge. And so, yeah, so now we're into 2024. So we touched on it earlier. So you've put the Sherco on the box 2 out of 2 times. You've got the first round of GNCCs coming up. What 1 or 2 weekends from now, from when we're doing this
Yes, so
podcast?
we have the first round of our National Enduro Series this upcoming weekend,
Right.
followed by first round of GNCC, one weekend off, then two GNCCs back to back, if I'm
Yeah.
remembering the schedule correctly.
Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm going to trust you on this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so you've also, I know we've talked a little bit about this. So you're racing sprint enduro, racing national enduro, you're racing GNCC. You said you're likely going to race, I think you said like 2 or 3 rounds of hard enduro. Um, and then obviously Endurocross and qualifying for ISDE must be a priority.
And hopefully some SOR sprint enduro.
Yeah.
Like I say, bust
I
out the
will do
start
my
money.
I will do my very best.
Doesn't sound like your
Um,
schedule's too packed or anything.
Yeah.
yeah, no, plenty of off weekends. Um,
So, so what would you
so
say
yeah,
out
it
of
was,
all of that? What's your priority for the season?
oh man, don't make me pick a favorite kid. That's always hard to do. So
Favorite kid, biggest
I
goals?
guess we'll I guess we'll start with kind of what Sherco intended for me. They It was the strangest phone call I've ever had. Let's start there. I could go into all of the reasons why it was strange. There were lots, but one of the moments that really stood out the most is they made me the offer. I'm like, okay, that sounds fantastic. And I said, so what series am I doing? He's like, well, we want you to do Endurocross because you've got the number one plate. And I'm like, yeah, of course that makes sense. You want to see the number one plate on the blue bike, and I
Reasonable.
love Endurocross. It's one of my favorite things to do. So of course, no problems. And I said, and what else do you want me to do? And he goes, well, what would you like to do? And I didn't even know what to say for a minute because never once in my career has a sponsor asked me what I want to do. It's always like you get told what to do. You're going to go here and you're going to go there, and if you have any extra time left over, you can maybe do something you want to do, right?
Yeah.
That makes it sound like I really don't like GNCCs, which I can. GNCCs are okay. They are fine. I have raced them my entire career, but there is something about being in a race with 900 sea riders at the same time as you that is maybe less than fun.
It's a
There's
different
also
beast.
something about going to John Pinton for the 25th year and the second time that season that is maybe less than fun. Like I mean, it's still racing my dirt bike, so it's still fun. But like, for most companies, if you are an East Coast based rider in the US, GNCC is non negotiable. You run, like I said in the article last week, you're on the GNCC Plus program. You do
Yeah.
GNCCs and then a secondary series, sometimes of your choosing, sometimes they kind of heavily suggest or tell you where to go. So when Shirko asked me what I wanted to do, I didn't really know. Like, I had to sit there and think about it. Like, long enough he thought maybe the call had dropped and asked if I was still there. I'm like, no, I'm just thinking. This really caught me off guard. But then I thought about it. I'm like, you know what I want to do? And not to say I'm too motivated by spite or anything. I want to put this blue motorcycle on every single podium in the continental United States if I can. That's what I want to do. I want this
Right.
bike on every single podium I can possibly put it on. I will look at the schedule. Who knows? I might even go to a Hare and Hound and put it on the podium there just because I can. Like that's the goal. So
Would you
he
would you come
didn't
west
seem
and try something like an NGPC or and sorry, what is it? It's the NPGC,
NGPC.
NGPC. Sorry.
potentially, although if I'm doing a West Coast series just because I love Meg Oggybright and I've done one before and really liked it, I'd probably go Hare and Hound.
Yeah.
They're high speed, but there's also some techie bits that I think
Yeah.
I'd get along well with.
That's fair.
Um, but unfortunately, Hare and Hound doesn't do a good job of not scheduling over the top of GNCC because why on earth would anyone do both of those things in a season? That's the thing I run
Yeah.
into. Like, nobody, Endurocross really doesn't care if they schedule over GNCCs because I'm the only one stupid enough to try and do both of those things at the same time for the most part. But yeah, so the current plan is I'm going to start by doing everything, and then I'm going to see what sticks, and I may continue to do everything the entire season. If I'm doing really good in a couple things and not so great in others, I may choose to like hone in on those things a bit more. I really don't know. And
I
like said,
I want to
Sherco
see
for their
you.
part says,
No, keep
go
going.
ahead.
Sorry. You go.
Oh, I was just saying that Sherco, for their part, basically just said, well, you do as many races as you want. If you're having fun and you're representing the brand well, that's all we want. Which
Awesome.
again made it the strangest phone call I've ever had with a sponsor before. So, but like I said, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this deal with Sherco, just because not only do I feel like I'm in a place where I'm being treated well and I'm respected and they want me. Like I can tell they actually want me to be there, and sometimes, to be perfectly frank with Gas, I couldn't tell if I mattered in the slightest to them. Not just because of what happened at the end of the season, but just some other problems we had throughout the year. I'm like, I can't. Anyway, that's all water under the bridge. It doesn't really matter at this point, but it's very, very refreshing to ride for people who want you and appreciate you. So the other thing, I guess, while we're talking about fun things I'm going to do, it's not a done deal yet for sure, but
Baja.
one of my counterparts from Great Britain, so she rides for their Women's World Trophy team. We have it arranged where we're going to do a bit of a foreign exchange program this year.
Oh yeah.
They have they have an Enduro GP round in Wales this year, and
Right.
she also
Yes,
rides
they
for
do.
Sherco. So I'm gonna go ride one of her Shercos in Wales if we can manage to make that all happen correctly, and then she's gonna come do either a GNCC or National Enduro this season as well. So that's probably
Awesome.
aside from 6 days, that's probably the thing I'm most excited about. I've always wanted to go try one of those. And like I know where I rank against most of those women because I race them at 6 days, and I really think I could be the first American female to make an Enduro DP podium, which I think would be sick.
That's rad.
That
It's a good
that's
goal.
epic. Yeah.
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 So I'm just going to throw it out here because Jared and Courtney didn't jump right on it. You know, there are very inexpensive direct flights from Calgary, Alberta to London Heathrow, and then it's a short 2-hour train ride to Cardiff in Wales. You know, if you could just make that work with, you know, maybe a race in Alberta, you know, I don't know if we only had a series
Huh.
here. Huh.
Yeah.
Food for thought, that's for sure. I mean, hey, well, unfortunately, given that Jared said that you guys seem to have a lot of dry, dusty things, and I think in Wales it rains every day, the train wouldn't be right, but I could at least get some sprinting practice in beforehand. So, could be,
Before
there's
six
certainly
days.
worse ideas.
We'll
There
we'll
are
uh
worse ideas. Yeah.
we'll water it. We'll make it just like Wales.
Excellent.
that
Y'all are
dry
the best.
conditions only medicine had.
No,
Yeah.
it's
It's it's provincial.
it's
I'm
out there.
trying to like make it sound better.
Oh,
Good effort.
just ask the
Oh.
farmers.
Yeah.
Sorry, eh?
Yeah, sorry. No do
Well,
to boot it.
new do about it. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Well, look, Rachel, we have
Oh
kept you
yeah.
for way too
Did I get
long.
it? Hang on.
Yeah,
Did I
you
get
got
it?
that
Oh
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah. You just gotta.
Oh yeah.
It's just like Minnesota
Yeah.
or
Okay.
North Dakota or
Okay.
it's kind of just like that. She's a gooder. Rachel Gutish, thank you so much. We've kept you for way too long. You can tell a story in the best possible way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you so much for being the first guest or victim on the, we'll try and say it without tongue twisting ourselves, the Enduro Bureau podcast. And, you know, just can't say thank you enough. And also how excited, you know, I am here at enduro.me to have you writing. I mean, the feedback has been insane. People are really excited about that, and you're doing a killer job. So, man, just keep gripping it and ripping it, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Of course, it was my pleasure to come on. Love to talk about dirt bikes. Won't shut up if you get me talking about dirt bikes. So,
Well, we're
yeah,
going to have you
and
Love it.
back. Don't
hopefully,
you worry.
yeah, hopefully, give it 4 or 5 months and I'll have some more stories to tell. Maybe less dramatic and painful ones, I hope, but stories all the same.
Right on. Okay. Well, hey, thanks, and we will see you before too long.